Alright, and hopefully we are live. I'm just going to double check here and make sure that we are going. It looks like it's saying that we're starting up, which should be good. It looks like we are live, so welcome everybody. I know I'm like 4 minutes late, having some internet issues. I think I got them fixed. Let me know if the mic is good. On the last live stream, we had some issues where the mic was not working properly, so I had to like redo that. Anyway, so happy Halloween to all of those of you out there that are not trick-or-treating. We just got back from trick-or-treating. It was pretty fun. First time with my daughter, obviously, so Nova had a blast. She was smiling the whole time. I mean, granted, she's not eating candy yet, but she just was having fun walking, you know, me holding her or her in the stroller when we were walking around with her brother, and her brother's father was also there, so it was really cool. We all hung out. I was Thor. She was Rocket Raccoon. Her brother was Black Knight or Dark Knight from Fortnite, and his father was Drifter from Fortnite as well. So, and I have to say, Fortnite. I'm aware of Fortnite. I'm not a big gamer like I used to be. I used to be really into like Call of Duty and all those type of videos or all those type of games. Not so much anymore, but it was interesting to say the very least to see everybody react to the Fortnite costumes. Definitely something unlike I've ever seen. All the kids were coming up to Hector like, "Oh, Fortnite," and they were like dancing and whatnot. It was funny. So yeah, so cool. Fortnite seems to be the big trend nowadays, so that's cool. So I'm going to say a quick hello to everybody in the chat, and then we're going to jump into some questions. I actually took some questions from Instagram. If you're not following us there, H2O Plants on Instagram. I did like a little thing on the story where you can add in your question, and a bunch of people came up with some pretty good questions, so we're going to go through. I'm going to answer them, and hopefully it helps somebody out there, and that you guys enjoy. And then we'll come back to the chat at the end when I get through all the questions. There's not a ton of them, but there's enough. It's going to take like maybe 10-15 minutes to get through. So, and I just thought that would be fun because, you know, it's, let's see here. Where is it? Nope, that's not where I want to go. I need to go up my archive, I think. Or your activity. Nope, that's not it. Insights. Content. I know I should have probably had this ready to begin with. So what's up, Adrian? How's it going? Thirsty Rabbit, what's going on, man? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Where is why? Your story posts after 24 hours, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But where is... Oh, I want... last 7 days, and I don't really care. Maybe that's the one. Oh, okay, here we go. I got it now. Alright. When's the next big plant order coming in? Tomorrow, actually. The website will be updated tomorrow night. So, let's get into these questions, and then I will... and then we'll get into the chat itself. So, the first question comes from Nara KM1K on Instagram, and they say, does activated carbon take out nutrients from soils like EcoComplete or Flugel stratum? So this is a very common question that we get where, you know, carbon is believed to remove stuff in your water column. Now, this is the case to some degree. But I know I've done a video on this previously mentioning that I don't use carbon because it does pull out nutrients, but I've come to realize and I've come to learn more about the subject where the amount of nutrients that the carbon pulls out of the aquarium is so minuscule, especially if you have like a good soil or you're using fertilizers. Like if you're dosing fertilizers, the carbon in the filter is only a certain amount, and that's going to pull out some, yes. However, the pores in the carbon are going to get clogged so quickly that it won't be able to do its job anymore, so it won't be able to pull anything out. So therefore, it's rendered useless and doesn't have that negative effect. Whether that negative effect can last for a day or a week or a month. It really depends on how much you have, how much fertilizer you're dosing, and all that stuff. But for the most part, for using carbon is not going to negatively impact it, but it's not really going to add anything if you're definitely dosing fertilizer, because the carbon is going to become useless anyway. So really, the only way that I recommend using carbon is, one, if you have a nasty smell in your aquarium. If for some reason it doesn't smell like naturey, if it starts smelling rotten or just something nasty, one, check out your aquarium, see what's going on in it. But two, you could put activated carbon in your filter. That will help remove the smell. Or if you're dosing medication, when you're done dosing medication, add it and it will help extract the medication from the water column. So that's pretty much it on if you should use carbon in your planted aquarium, and if it affects your fertilizer at all or your substrate. Next question comes from rsus21, and they ask, how do I prevent algae from growing on my Amazon sword plant leaves? Well, that's really going to depend. So when algae grows on any leaf, typically it's because it has the right conditions to do so. So most of the time, from what I found with algae that grows on leaves, if it's a spot algae, it's usually too much light. So you have too much light coming from your light. The leaves are maybe too close to the light. Maybe they're directly under where the light beam comes down instead of towards the back or the front where the beam is more spread out. So they're in a more concentrated light. Or it's just too much. You know, you have a really high powerful light on the aquarium and the plant is a low light plant, not ideal for that light, for that kind of light, and it will start growing algae. Now, if it's a hair algae, it's usually because too much flow. It could also be CO2 fluctuations or high organics in the water. Those are also two common side effects. But I typically find that most of the time it's either from too much flow or not enough flow. So you definitely want to have your plants with a decent amount of rotation in the water so the water current is spinning, but you don't want a direct path passing over the plant, because that definitely causes stuff like staghorn algae or anything like that. So that's really it on algae for that. I forgot to mention also, I do know that I put in the title 15% off tonight. If you go to the website, enter in Spooky at checkout, you get 15% off your entire order, except for stone packages or stone. Woodrow's World asks, what is a good process for adding new plants to a tank? So, if you want to know my process, I'm going to tell you my process, I'm going to tell you what you should do. So my process is really nothing. I look at the plant, clean it up a bit. If there's any like kind of melting leaves during, if I ordered plants from somebody, because I buy plants from hobbyists all the time, so I'll get plants in, I'll give them a quick visual inspection, make sure there's nothing that I know is visible on it, like Tricharia gibba, which we've gone over in the past from these two tanks, especially this one that's dealing with this right now, or any other sort of issues like that. And I make sure that, I visually inspect, kind of lay them out. And then that's it, really. And then I just put them in the tank. Now, what you should really do is definitely do a big visual inspection. Maybe take like a little bucket of water, a little container of water. I have these little clear bins almost. I don't have any around right now. But these little like Home Depot bins that are like yay big. Fill with water, put the plants in, kind of let them mellow out. See if anything, is floating around, maybe any snails if you're worried about snails. I like snails, I don't have a problem, some people do. Also, check for any sort of maybe worms. There's sometimes detritus worms or planaria. Some people freak out about those things, I don't. But if you're definitely worried about things getting into your aquarium, for whatever the case is, maybe you skeeve them, maybe you're not up on the information about them, so you're worried about that stuff, then definitely take your time, look at the plants, put them underwater with a light, like get a little lamp, or even just like take the bucket, put it up to your aquarium light, and just look for stuff that you may not want in your aquarium. Look for algae. Sometimes maybe the top of the plants or certain leaves will have algae growing on them. Maybe you don't want that algae in your tank, so remove that leaf. That will reduce the risk of getting algae, even though there could still be spores on the plant that you can't see. So definitely just give it a nice visual inspection. Other people like to go really to extreme levels. That's bleach dipping, putting them in potassium permanganate, which is it's like a pool filter cleaner chemical. and also alum dip, which is a pickling agent. Now you could do all those, and back when I first started keeping plants, I used to do those. If you're really worried about stuff, I definitely recommend you take that extra precaution. However, I don't worry about that stuff. I let the problems come as they will, because no matter what, even if you sit there and you do all these steps to ensure that nothing's going to get in your aquarium, there's going to be something that finds its way in there. Whether you're going to mess up by taking a piece of wood that, I mean, the woods all come from nature, so there's bound to be something on that wood. Even if it's dried, like I've put stone and wood in a tank and not introduced a certain plant, and all of a sudden it's like a moss grows or some other kind of plant grows. So there's things there. It's just going to happen. So I just let it come, and I kind of treat it as it go along. So if you're really worried, take the extra steps. If you're one of those, you want to, hey, get your feet wet and experiment and have those downfalls and then, you know, big upswings, because you're going to solve that problem. Because everything's solvable. It's not impossible to beat these things, except for whatever is going on in this tank, which is a whole different case. But yeah, pretty much just take it as it goes. But that's really it. What up, Greg Jones? Trick or treat. I did say spooky for the 15% off. And just a keynote, Aquatic Experience was 2 weekends ago, right? Was it this past weekend? No, it was the weekend before that. I've been sick ever since like Tuesday of that week after the Aquatic Experience. I'm just now getting better, but after being out tonight trick-or-treating, throat and stuff is messed up, so yeah. The Basking Spot asks, how do you pick a good selection of plants for a tank/scape? Well, when it comes to selecting plants, that can be tricky because it really depends on the size of your aquarium. So if you have a really big aquarium, you're going to want to go with probably really big plants because you have a lot of space to fill in. You're going to want to get bigger plants that fill it in. So like, for instance, Amazon swords. Amazon swords can get really big. We got some really large ones in that are 24 inches tall. I mean, granted, those are grown over years that tall, but over the years in the aquarium, they'll eventually reach that size. So putting them in like a nano tank is an idea. Now, rosette sword, which is almost identical to the Amazon sword, looks very similar. If you didn't know the difference, you wouldn't be able to tell which is which. But because we obviously have both, I know the different characteristics of both. But rosette sword stays nice and small and compact, and that would be ideal for a smaller aquarium like one of these. So to answer your question, when it comes to picking out the right plants and scapes, it's really about experimenting and doing research on every plant and saying, okay, I have a small tank, I need small plants. Let me look and see plants that stay small, because you don't want to get plants that are going to overgrow the aquarium unless that's what you're going for. So if you're going for any sort of immersed setup, much like the paludarium behind me, then that's completely fine, but it's a matter of what you're trying to do. But just to name a few for small aquariums, more of the most used plants that I see used, definitely Anubis nana petite. That can be used in almost any tank, small, big, anywhere in between. You got Monte Carlo, great carpeting plant or just accent plant for rocks and wood. You can attach it to things, it'll grow. It works really well. So that's another one that I see used a lot. So you have Monte Carlo, Anubis nana petite. Moss balls are another good one. Really simple to use. We did the whole mountain or the cave scape over here, which is actually a little bit broken. I got to get in here and fix it. But moss balls are another good one. Crypts, depending on the type of crypt, but Crypwindidis, Cryptochetes, these are ones that stay relatively small and compact. Those are great. Lucians is a good mid-ground plant. Can be used in both small or large aquariums. And mosses are awesome for any tank as well. Any sort of moss will do. What else? Java ferns are another good one. And then when it comes to like taller tanks, stem plants are good. You could do them in cubes, but you gotta just keep in mind that stem plants are going to continuously grow. You're going to have to continuously trim them, or get slower growing ones, or get ones that just really stay short. There are stem plants that don't grow very tall, like Lobelia cardinalis is a good plant that it can grow really tall, but it takes a very long time to get there. In my opinion, or in my experience, it stays rather small. So that's kind of how you choose your plant. You just have to go through the notions, figure out what plants are what, order a bunch of different ones, test them out, see what you like, and then go from there, because you're going to run into new plants all the time and what is really going to work for you. So that's a good question, though. I like that question. I want to do a more in-depth video on that, but not for a live stream. Let's see. What else is there? Did that one. Did that one. We did that one. So Jake Moat 94 on Instagram asked, how can I keep my aquarium plants healthy and thriving without CO2? It's actually very easy. All these tanks, even this one, I stopped dosing CO2. I'm running them all without CO2 right now, and they all look phenomenal. Now, do you need CO2 in your aquarium for plants to grow? You need some sort of CO2. Now, whether that be from your fish, when they respirate, they breathe out CO2, they use oxygen, and then they excrete CO2. Through surface agitation, so when you have the surface gets broken up either by a bubbler or by your filter output, you're breaking the tension of the water, you're allowing oxygen to escape into the atmosphere and CO2 to be absorbed into the water. These are things that happen naturally in the environment. It's just the way nature is. That's why you see a lot of like algae outbreaks in the water, because it becomes too CO2 rich, and then algae outbreaks happen. I mean, like just rivers and sea water and all that. You also have plants that excrete CO2 through their nighttime process. So when the lights go off, they release CO2. Granted, it's not as much as they need to absorb, but it puts some CO2 back into the water. You also have when organics break down in the water, such as driftwood, your substrate. If you have like a really good aqua soil, as that substrate breaks down, it actually releases carbon because it has a good majority of organic material in there. If you put leaf litter, that's more organic compounds that are inside your aquarium. So you have all these things that introduce CO2 in your aquarium without having CO2 injection. So I've ran plenty of tanks without CO2 injection, and they work just fine. It's just about choosing the right plants. When it comes to choosing the right plants for CO2, there's really only a handful of plants that absolutely require it. For the most part, like I would say 95% of all the plants we sell on our website don't need CO2. You could grow them under a good enough light without CO2 and they'd be just fine. CO2 is all about speeding up the growth of the plants. If you want the plants to grow out really fast, carpet out in an aquarium, just really fill in areas, then CO2 is definitely what you want to get to achieve that effect. But keep in mind, once you have that effect and you don't want to have to keep maintaining those plants, then you're going to have to shut off the CO2, and that can cause imbalances in the aquarium. So when it comes to really setting up an aquarium and thinking about these things is, one, how often do you want to trim plants? Now granted, if you want to be trimming plants every week, maybe selling them to friends online, whatever, by all means. But if you want to just set up a tank and just kind of let it fill in over time and you have the patience, no CO2, do that. Research the plants before you buy them. Make sure they're the right plants that don't need CO2, and you'll be good to go. I'm running out of water and my throat is getting messed up. Oh, sorry. Let's see. We have a couple more questions here, I think. I'm just reading through them because there's some that I want to do in a future video that I plan on just doing, like a dedicated video towards. So let's try this one. Kuznets Off asks, how do I check what's causing diatoms in my tank that's been running for 2 years? Well, diatoms are typically very easy to solve. It's usually too much light. So if you have your aquarium in a room like this with tons of exterior light that comes in, that can easily cause diatoms. Diatoms typically form when there's too much light and not enough plant matter to absorb that light. So if you only have a couple plants in there and you have your light on for, if you have your light on for any more than 8 hours, it's probably too much to begin with. So check your light, make sure you have a timer, make sure it's only on for 8 hours at max. I typically do 6 hours. Make sure it's not directly next to a window. And make sure you have a lot of plants. The more plants you have, the less diatoms that are going to grow. That's pretty much it. I mean, diatoms, it just happens. I have them in some tanks and others I don't. Occasionally we'll get some green diatoms on the glass here. I just go in and scrape it off, and that's just because of the light. It's going to happen, and there's really no way around it. Unless you want to like really reduce the light level, and then your plants may suffer in the long run. The other options that you have is get something that eats diatoms. So my favorite is a narite snail. Get one narite snail, throw it in your aquarium. You'll see him every once in a while, and he will devour the diatoms that grow on the glass and on all the plants and stuff. So they're excellent eaters of the spot algae. The other options are autosynclus catfish. Now those I don't recommend for small aquariums because you do need groups of like 6 or more. They tend to like really large groups. So if you have a large aquarium, say like a 55 or a 40 gallon, you can definitely have a bunch in there and they'd be alright, but definitely get them in large numbers. The last one is a smaller size pleco. So not a common pleco, but a like bristle nose pleco. They'll stay relatively small. Or one of the L, like the really like rare L numbers. Those don't get, you know, super big. And those will eat the diatoms also. So that's a couple ways to get rid of diatoms, keep them under control. And I think that's a good starting point. And, you know, just really kind of dial in the tank. Usually even after 2 years, it's still going to happen. I have tanks that have been running downstairs for 2 years, still get diatoms. I know what it's causing it. It's too much light, and that's just because I'm not sacrificing plant growth for the algae growth. And I do once a week. I go in there, I scrape it with the little razor blade, get it off the glass, and it's good to go. Alright, let's see. I think that's it for the questions from Instagram, which is great because that gives me another like 30 minutes to answer your guys' questions on here. So that's awesome. I ran out of freaking water. Alright, let's take some questions from the YouTube chat. Answered, when's my next big plant order? Jay Cruz, do you use black carbon media in your planted tanks? I've heard mixed opinions about that. We actually went over that in the beginning, so hopefully you were here to hear that. Thanks for the question. Thomas, happy Halloween. I've got recurring green water. I've drained the tank 3 times. I've got tons of plants. It just keeps coming back. Alright, so, Thomas. It sounds like possibly too much light. Green water is typically from too much light. So I would look into getting it, if you don't have your light on the timer, put it on a timer, 6 to 8 hours. Now if you have that, what else could be causing it? Make sure you don't have any exterior light hitting it from, you know, a window or something like that. That could be also causing it. Worst case scenario, UV filter will take, UV light will take care of it. That's a little costly. Or you could try filter floss in your filter. Filter floss, it's polyfill. You can buy it from like most stores. It's like the stuff that you stuff inside pillows. Really good stuff at removing fine particles. That'll help remove some of the algae. May not remove all of it, but may help to cut down on it. You can also dose algae effects, and that will chemically kill it as well. Scott says, I'm getting ready to plant a 75-gallon tank. That's awesome. What substrate or mix of substrates would you recommend? I love crepes. For a 75-gallon tank, that's really going to depend on your budget. Now, you can use sand if you want, but what I tend to tell people is sand is only going to give you so much benefits. I mean, really no benefits at all. And you'll have to fortify it using something like root tabs. That can be costly in the long run. Or you could get a really good substrate like ADA aqua soil, but that's going to cost you an arm and a leg. So what I tend to recommend people is get the middle of the ground. So stuff like flugel stratum, Tropica aqua soil, Eco Complete would even work. Sechem fluorite. These are all middle of the ground, so they're not going to break the bank too much. You'll probably need, I don't know, I get the biggest bags you can. I think they're like 20 bucks. And you'll probably need like 6 of them for a 75-gallon. So you're looking at like $100 and something. But yeah, you know, those will definitely give you a good substrate base. And I try not to mix substrates. However, if you're setting up a tank where you want a portion of it to just be open space, which is completely fine, you want maybe like a sand trail in the middle and you're going to have plants growing on the sides, or plants growing in the back and you're just going to have sand up front, you're not going to grow any plants in the front, that's going to save you some money. Because what you could do is you make a nice little border out of double wall polycarbonate or like a pliable plastic that is aquarium safe. Forget the names of them, but I'm sure you can look them up. Just look up how to divide a substrate. And what you could do is you could put those to design your pattern. You fill up the areas where you want to grow plants with the aqua soils or whatnot, and then you put the sand in the rest of the spot. And now you've saved yourself money because you don't have to do the whole tank in that. So really look into kind of what your layout is first, get an idea for what you're going to do, and then you could go from there. But anything other than sand and gravel is going to be very beneficial to plants. Keep in mind, even if you do like a high-grade aqua soil, you still need a dose with something like our fertilizer or any fertilizer like that, because the substrate that's there acts as a sponge. So when you have a good substrate, it's good clay base or whatnot, when you dose water column first, which is what Vital is, what we sell on the website, it replenishes those nutrients into the water column, and then the substrate like Eco Complete and ADA Aqua Soil will absorb that and attract it so the plants can utilize it more. So, yeah. What's going on, Q Aquatics? Welcome, welcome, welcome. It was good seeing you at AE, right? Yeah, I did see you at AE. You were running around in, I forget the other girl's name with the tinfoil, she had like a tinfoil hat on with the fishies. It was pretty cool. I like that. What's going on, Taff? How's it going? Sick on Halloween, so not great. Yeah, I'm sick as well, so I know what you mean. Ali Raza says, what is the best plants for a live bearer fry to hide in? So one of my favorite plants to recommend to people is water sprite lace. It is absolutely phenomenal for any sort of breeding fish. It is a very hardy plant. Although I have gotten some people say I can't grow it, and I don't understand why. It's like one of the easiest plants, but I mean, I've come across some plants that I can't grow myself too, so I can understand. But for the most part, the majority of people can grow it. So it's a super easy, super fast growing plant. It is super easy to propagate. Every single leaf, if it was to break off the main plant, or even still attached to the main plant, will produce new babies from that leaf. It's a lot like Java Fern. It's really awesome actually how it does this. So it produces new babies, so you can break off the leaves of the mother plant that say if you ordered it from us, you would get. You can break off like 1 or 2 leaves. You can leave them floating. They'll eventually sprout roots and new leaves. You can plant those down, start the cycle over and over again, and pretty soon you can have a whole aquarium of water sprite lace. Now, the name lace, it obviously has smaller leaves, more lace-like, and they kind of interweave like this, creating a beautiful just little like nesting area for all these baby fish and shrimp to eat and graze on, and you know, feel protected. And it's a super awesome plant. It's like one of the most recommended plants that I recommend to people. Water sprite lace, hands down my favorite plant for fish. Now there is hornwort and anacris and kabamba and guppy grass and what else? Mosses, giant hair grass, vivipara style works really good. All these plants are also good for the fry, and they all have the same benefits. However, water sprite, because it propagates so easily, and the fact that it can be floated, planted, you could even attach it to things. It will grow like what I have some right here. It's like wedged into the rocks. It doesn't need substrate to grow. It's just a super easy, versatile, hardy plant. So I really like it. And the beautiful thing about it, once you start getting it going, just, you know, you could give it to your friends. Gabriel wants to know how to kill cyanobacteria. I've already done a video on this. Look it up. It's on the channel. It's a couple videos back, maybe about, I would say maybe 4 months or so, 5 months. Maybe longer. Might be 6 months old. Look up cyanobacteria on our channel and you'll see it. Agent 69 says, I have algae in my tanks. Should I stop dosing first? So fertilizer could cause algae. It really comes down to the type of algae, so we would need to know more about the type of algae that you have, and then we can better troubleshoot why you're having issues. Now, if it is an algae, you know, if you're not in here and we don't figure this out, but if you have algae and you dose the fertilizer, and you look up the type of algae that you have, and it says, hey, that's caused because you have too much potassium or too much nitrates or too much phosphorus. These are all things that can happen. Look at the fertilizer you're using. I mean, if it's ours, it has everything in there, so that could be one, you know, cause. If it's somebody else's fertilizers, like Seachems, they have a lot of different bottles, so yours may not have potassium, or maybe you're just dosing potassium. And if you're just dosing potassium, you're going to have so much potassium in there that it's going to cause algae. So definitely look up what sort of algae you have. There's plenty of websites out there that help you identify, and you can figure out the causes. And once you figure that out, then you'll know what the cause is, and then you can act accordingly. What's up, Baron Guy? What's going on? Oh, Pepper's Paw says, I've had no luck with tissue cultures. Any special suggestions for success? Tissue cultures can be just very tricky. I've had a number of them from many different manufacturers, not just one, but all of them. I constantly get in new tissue cultures from different vendors, different manufacturers, and I try them out to see how they're going to hold up. I would say some tissue cultures are about a 50-50 chance that they're going to actually work out. So it's a possibility that they don't. There's other ones that have a better success rate. The complete aquatics ones that we recently got in have been doing really well. When I put the plants in the aquariums, 90% of them survived, so I was really happy about that. And like there was one that had 3 plants in it. It was an Ereo, and it might have been my own fault. I might have buried them a little too deep, but I had 3 Ereos. I planted all 3. 2 of them didn't make it. 1 made it. It was well worth it because even if I was to pay retail price for it, I would have paid $15 for that package. And I got 1 out of the 3 Ereos survived. I think that 1 Ereo is normally like $20 from a hobbyist, and it wouldn't be as big as it was. So the fact that the plant was big, healthy, and the fact that I had a chance of all 3 succeeding was well worth the price, even if I was to buy it retail. So I do like tissue cultures, especially if you're getting rare plants. If you're getting rare plants, definitely go with tissue cultures. Like we've had crypt flamingos in there, Anubis marble variegated. These are ones that we recently got in that we're selling like hotcakes, that are just well worth it because I think it's $15 on the website. If you get 1 of those crypt flamingos to survive, just 1, it's worth it because if you were to buy it from any hobbyist, you would have mostly like paid over 20, probably over $30 for that 1 plant. So it's well worth the $15 to have 3 or 4 chances of growing that plant versus buying one from a hobbyist for $20, $30 and it possibly not making it. So I like the chances with that. Now, if you were getting easy plants, like stuff that like we already have, so stuff like I've seen tissue cultures of plain Anubis Nana Petite. I wouldn't even waste my time with it because you could just get Anubis Nana Petite already grown in the aquarium, like ready to go, like the ones we sell. The only reason why you would do tissue cultures is to avoid like past snails or algae that you're afraid to get in your aquarium, but we already went over that. I don't care about that stuff. I just take it as it comes. So yeah, I mean, tissue cultures, I definitely feel you though. There's some that just don't work and there are some that do, and it's just one of those, you take that chance on it. It is a gamble most of the time. I won't even, you're not guaranteed. They're not guaranteed, especially if you're buying them. Like when you buy them from me, I have to ship them to you. So even the shipping process can screw them up. Much less if you buy them in the store. I bought them in the store from like Petco and PetSmart before, because I found like varieties that I wanted that I didn't have access to yet, and I wanted to grow them out of my tanks, and some of them didn't survive. So it's just they have a very short like sell window, so they have to sell within a certain amount of time once you get them in from the manufacturers. I get tissue cultures in from my distributors that I can't even sell because the shipping because they ship to my wholesalers, which then ship to me, so it goes from the manufacturers to the wholesalers and then to me. So it's like you got at least a week, maybe longer, that they're in transit moving around. By the time they get to me, sometimes they're not even, I can't even sell them. So we literally go through and we're like, yep, this one's good, this one's good, this one's no good, this one's good. Downoi is a big one. Downoi definitely does not like tissue cultures. I keep saying like, maybe this one will work, maybe this one will work. Never again will I buy down. I'm just growing it out for now on, and I'll just sell it as I have it. All right. Let's see. Mitch says, does flugel stratum produce ammonia on the initial startup of a cycle tank, and will it eliminate the need for root tabs? So Mitch, great question. Flugel stratum, I have never used it, but from what I've heard and done research on, it will either produce a small amount or no ammonia at startup, which a lot of shrimp users like it because it has no ammonia. However, it does not eliminate the need for root tabs or fertilizer. So what happens when you have a substrate and you put in any substrate, doesn't matter if it's flugel stratum, ADA aqua soil, contra soil, which we'll actually be selling on the website very shortly, or anything like that, any sort of aqua soil that's a clay-based and has minerals, you know, it's like round pellets or the fluorite from Seachem or anything like that. They all have a certain amount of volume of nutrients first in the packaging. So they may last 2 months, 6 months. I doubt you'll get more than 6 months out of each package. You'll usually need to add something in there because what happens is the plants, they send down their roots, they start extracting all the nutrients, or it starts leaching into the water column. The plants absorb it through their leaves, and eventually it becomes almost like a barren wasteland. Now, yes, you have your fish producing waste. Some of that waste will get trapped in there, remineralize it some sort, you know, in some sort of way, but it's not going to replenish everything. It's usually just a lot of nitrogen and some minor other elements. When you use like a liquid fertilizer, like this one or any of the other brands out there, you're putting it into the water, and then that substrate can reabsorb those minerals. As well as when you put root tabs in, you're putting in new ion of its. So you're putting in new molecules and new material that can attract new stuff, because eventually, if you if you know anything about like agriculture, they have to turn over crops, they have to give them a resting period. Soil can get burnt out, so that may take a year or 2 years or 3 years for your aqua soil to become completely barren. But keep in mind that it will eventually lose all of its nutrient content, so, and some of its ability to hold on to that nutrient content. So that's why adding in root tabs at least every 6 months, sometimes every 3 months depending on the plant load, and adding in the fertilizer on a weekly basis like this, excellent to maintain that volume of nutrients. But less is more when it comes to nutrients. You don't need a whole lot. So like something like this, even though it says like dose 1 pump every 10 gallon, dose 1 pump for every 10 gallons for 1 to 3 times a week, you could probably get by with once a week and not even do the 3 times a week, and you'll have plenty more fertilizer in the long run. So just less is more when it comes to fertilizer, but it is needed. You can't go without it. Andrew Cruz, hold on, I'll answer your question in just a second. I planted some Renaki Mini since AE, and pretty much all of it melted. Mind you, I am new to planted tank scene. Did I plant them wrong to have them all melt like that? Well, it depends on how you bought them. Were they grown immersed? Were they grown in a tissue culture? Were they tank grown? Stem plants melt a lot when you first put them in the aquarium. They're going to melt a lot of their older leaves. But as long as a section of stem still survives, even if it has no leaves, it will still be alright. Odds are, it just didn't take to your water, which is completely fine. It happens. I'd say if you want, try again. But the chances are most likely you didn't screw up. It just doesn't like your water, and that's completely fine. I wouldn't bother trying to fix my water for that plant. I would try finding a plant that works with my water. So. Try and think of it that way. I've killed many plants myself. I had incidents with AR. It's like one of the only stem plants that I have a difficult time growing. The regular Alternia Renaki, the taller one, grows just fine, but the mini version I've always had a tough time with. I believe it does like a lot of light, and I just didn't put it in a tank with enough light. So, Famous Jones, hi. Jenny, what's going on? Do you think aqua soil would buffer the water too much for Neocaridina? No, not at all. Definitely use aqua soil. Plenty of aquarium water to drink it, right? Just pick up a tank. Chug. What's up, learning to fish? Jenny says, after a 50% water change, all my tetras died. The rest of the fish are okay. They were breathing hard the first day, but okay now. What could have happened? I did everything the same as usual. Jenny, that is most likely a question that is going to be unanswered. There's numerous factors. One thing that I can think of is maybe there was a chlorine spike in your water when you did your water change. There are some regions of the country, I'm sure the rest of the world too, when there's heavy rains. If there's a possibility of that rain somehow making its way into the water system or bringing contaminants with it, they'll add extra chlorine. So it's possible, even if you added your regular dose of dechlorinator to your water, there may have been excess that you didn't account for. And it happens. People lose fish all the time from that. It's something that you won't, you can't expect yourself to sit there and test the water every single time before you do a water change to make sure it's okay. So it's just one of those things that you kind of have to deal with. What I will say is you probably wouldn't have lost your fish if you didn't do such a large water change. That's why I don't like doing massive water changes, at least with my aquariums with fish in them. For these aquariums, because there's nothing in them other than the plants, I don't mind doing 50% water changes or 100% water changes if I have to. It's not a big deal. When there's fish involved, I try and stick under 30% if possible. Granted, there's been times I've done 50% water changes, but when you change a smaller amount of water more frequently, or just change a smaller amount of water, you stand less of a chance of there being all those, chemicals that have possibly been added to the water when you do the water change to affect your tanks. So, what brand of rimless tanks do you use? We have the Ultim Nature Systems. We actually sell these. We don't have them on the website, but if you're interested in them, feel free to message me and I could give you pricing. We work with the manufacturer UNS to distribute these so we can drop ship them to you. What's up, Kevin Rosenberg? How's it going? Do you just use the white lights or do you use the blue and the red lights? Which ones are best? Jay Cruz, this is an excellent question. I'm actually working on a full in-depth video on this. But to answer your question directly, white light contains all light. It contains blue, green, red, yellows, that kind of thing. It contains everything. I like the fixtures with blues and greens and whatnot. Let me show you on this. Hopefully it doesn't blind you. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. I'm dropping the fixture. That fixture has all the colors in it. It looks like it's going to not come out on the camera. But reds and blues are best for growing plants. It's highly important for chlorophyll. They use more red light than they use anything else. Blue is also really good for them. And white light really just, it has everything. But the thing about it is think about it this way. You have a lot of white light, which is fine. But the blues and the green LEDs, anyway, for the LEDs, really help to add that extra light in there, that extra wavelength that the plants can utilize quicker. And they grow much faster with direct red light and blue light. That's why if you ever look at any sort of plant hydroponic system indoors or anything like that, they use red and blue lights only. They don't use white light because it grows the plant so much faster. So I always recommend look at aquarium lights that have red and blue diodes if you're going to do LEDs, or if you have fluorescents, get lights with red and blue bulbs, and you'll have better success with more like brightly colored plants and better looking plants because they're going to have that light available to them. It also just brings out the colors to your eye because there's red and blue, and that helps really bring out the colors in the aquarium just, from looking at them. And don't run blue lights at night. It causes algae. Somebody says that the AR could have died from low iron. Doubt that unless you have no iron. That's a very possibility. But red plants don't, like, the iron is such a small level of what makes them red. So... let's see. Andrew Cruz, or no. Kevin Rosenberg says, what kind of substrate would you recommend for a 125 with 100 cardinals? Just some Amazon swords and frog bit. Depending on what you're trying to go for, I probably wouldn't even substrate the whole tank. I would get like little planters, like little pottery planters, or little plastic cups. Right? Get a little bag of aqua soil, fill them up, bury them in the sand, right? You put the plant in here, and you put the sand all around it, and that way the plant has a ton of nutrients right out of its root. It's got good substrate, and that'll keep the plant happy. Granted, the roots spread out, it'll be looking for nutrients. You can supplement with using root tabs, but that's going to be a lot cheaper than doing the whole tank in like aqua soil or something like that. So that's, for a big tank like that, that's my suggestion, especially since you're only keeping swords. Very easy. You can just get a bigger cup. I mean, I wouldn't use like something that small, but get a little bit bigger of a container. And there you go. Just cut holes in the side so the roots can escape, and you're good to go. You can't grow S. repens, whatever I try. Yeah, S. repens gives me an issue too. But we do get them in from a local source. A local hobbyist has a 20-gallon long. He hits me up every couple of weeks, says, hey, I got a bunch of S. repens. You want them? And I'm like, yes, because when we buy them commercially, they don't do well because they melt back a ton and they don't look as nice. And these are some of the nicest S. repens I've ever seen that I get from these guys. So, let's see. How long do moss balls last if you split them and glue them onto rocks? I've heard it goes both ways. What's your take? They seem to last fine. I put some in here and they do all right. I split them, haven't really died at all. The tank to my right looks so nice. I wish I could have. You could have if you want to buy it. No. Yeah, you know, this tank's nice looking. It's going through some issues right now because I cut the CO2, so I see like little algae forming here. And, you know, things aren't looking as nice because I cut the CO2, but things are growing. I do see new growth popping up, so that's always a good sign. And we'll see how it goes with that CO2. But this is achievable. This isn't that hard. It's just practice and, you know, time, patience. Hey, can Molly's swordtails and Corey's survive 10 days without food-only plants? You can. They most likely can. I've gone up to a week without feeding my fish. Granted, not Molly's or swordtails, but I think they would be fine. What I would suggest to do is maybe get one of those auto feeders or like some sort of I don't know, like one of those things. Like it's like a 7-day feeder or something. And it sticks onto the side of the tank or something, and it'll like feed for 7 days. Try that. Typically a week is good. They could probably go 10 days, but there may be some loss, so I wouldn't go 10 days. Or just what you do is if you have a friend or a family member, take a little sandwich baggie or a little cup, right? Tell them, you know, 5 days into wherever you're going, if you have a vacation or something, tell them, you know, at day 5, can you just go, there's a cup of food on the top of the aquarium, just dump that in. Just pre-portion it out and hide the rest of the food. Put it somewhere where they can't find it. Because people tend to say, oh, that's not enough. Let me add more. And they'll go and put a bunch more in, and you'll wind up overfeeding the tank, causing a huge nitrogen spike or ammonia spike, and you'll wind up killing fish. So pre-portion everything. Sandwich baggie is good. If you have multiple tanks, you could stick it right on the tank, label it, feed, you know, this day if you're going for longer days. And that makes it super easy. And tell them, follow the directions. Do not take it into your own hands. All right, we got a couple more questions here. We got about 10 minutes left, so I appreciate everybody for hanging out. Just to reiterate, tonight's code is spooky on the website. You get 15% off everything but stone. that lasts until midnight. And then tomorrow, we're going to be announcing our month-long Black Friday sales. So, but this one's pretty good, so take advantage of it. Ah, I need water. I have no water. I've got catfishes, loaches that like to uproot my plants, so I worry about the root tabs getting dug up. Anything I can do to prevent that? It shouldn't be a problem. When you put the root tab in, the capsule is going to dissolve, at least if you're using ours. So it comes in a gel capsule. When you put the root tab down into the substrate, bury it as deep as you can. Within probably about 5 minutes, that root tab is going to dissolve, leaving the dirt that's in there, because it's essentially dirt and clay that's mixed together, and that's going to release it at the bottom of your substrate. If your fish dig up whatever substrate you have, yeah, it's gonna mix it up or whatnot, but eventually it'll settle back down, make its, if you do like water changes, it may make its way back down into the substrate, and that's really it. I mean, catfishes and loaches, they're gonna dig, so it's really hard to prevent that. And really anything you put in there, that it's gonna get mixed up. So, yeah. The other thing is you could put the root tab under the substrate where maybe like a log or a rock is, maybe where they can't dig directly under. And as long as that dirt gets in there, the roots will find it. So, AR Mini is one of those plants that cannot grow from tissue cultures. It sucks. Yes, I've tried it many times. It does not work for me either. What's up, Justin? What's up, Dave? Any idea when red tiger lotus will be back in stock? We ordered some. I don't know if we're getting it in tomorrow. I haven't checked like what's coming in on the slip, but I do know we ordered it, and they did say they had it, so I imagine we are getting them. If we don't have them in by tomorrow night, message me. We do have some. The problem is we got some in like a couple weeks ago, but they were just the bulbs, and we only like to sell them fully sprouted to make sure, like, hey, this is an actual plant, because when you buy bulbs, like, if you go to, like, Petco or PetSmart, you'll see the 3-pack of bulbs. Typically, you're lucky if one sprouts. Most of the time, none of them sprout. So we like to make sure that it is sprouting, it is growing, and you'll get a plant out of it at least. So message me if you don't save on the website by tomorrow night. I don't know if you remember the last time, but I've been having an issue with a weird black, very dark maroon algae on my plants. That isn't BBA. Well, I replaced a piece of grapewood, and it's actively going away now. Nice. It's probably from high organics. It may not be BBA, but high organics in the water causes algae. David says, question, new 5-gallon flugel spec, eco-complete, lots of plants getting heavy brown and hair algae. 0 ammonia, 0 nitrate, and nitrogen 20. Been double dosing fertilizer, no effect, easy nano. I would not be dosing fertilizer if you're getting brown and hair algae. And at least not double dosing. Do a regular dose. It could be too much light or too much flow. I would look into either one of those. Do you know of any good places to get hardscaping materials without breaking the bank? Well, Devin, we sell rocks and we sell wood. We may not be selling rocks much longer. Pretty much whenever I burn through whatever I have left, which I still have a lot left, but when we burn through that, I don't know if we're going to continue selling it, just because stone is a huge investment and not a lot of people buy it. We were originally selling it in 10-pound packages, but I found that wasn't really selling, so we reduced it to 5 pounds, so now you can order 5 pounds at a time. We've just had it sitting there a very long time, and I don't know if it's worth it, because it's like just picture a pile of money just sitting and you can't use it. That's my problem right now, is that I don't know, we ordered like $1,500 or $2,000 worth of stone, maybe more. I don't even remember. This was 6+ months ago. We ordered all this stone, and I still have like probably about half of it left. So if you want stone, definitely take advantage of it on the website. We have like 7 or 8 different kinds. We have driftwoods. We're going to be putting the soil, the aqua soil, the contra soil on the website. We have smaller, like I think it's, what are they, 3-liter bags or 5-liter bags, something like that. So we'll have those on the website very soon. So yeah, if you want hardscape material, look into what we have on the website. There is bulk discounts. Like the more you order up to like 20 pounds, you get like a percentage off, because we're just like, okay, just buy more so we can ship it out to you. So Rose says the Nephotes Hydrola Taiwan I bought from you is doing great. That's awesome to hear. That's an awesome plant. Very rare. Well, not very rare, but rare-ish. We've actually have so much of it growing now that we now we can act like very frequently have it on the website and keep turning it over. So it's very cool. I burst onto the scene just in time for this to be over. Well, welcome, Tank Tested. Alex, how's it going? Ever plan on going on a plant collecting vacation? Yes. I have some ideas for a video that I want to do, and it involves going into the natural habitat of where some of these plants either come from, like from one of our distributors. I've actually already talked to one of the people we order plants from, and I'm hoping that maybe in a couple months we'll be able to go out there, film what they do, and I want to put that into a video that I have an idea for. I don't want to reveal too much about it, but I think it would be really cool to see where they get the plants from. Like, where do these come from? Because, you know, like some of them we grow in our tanks, obviously, but there's a lot that we sell that we couldn't possibly keep up with supply just growing them in our tanks. So I'd love to see it. I know they have, you know, the immersed tables where they grow everything, you know, immersed and grows super fast. I've heard they also go into the Florida lakes and collect plants. They have a collecting license, so it would be really cool to watch and film. So I really look forward to it. I'm hoping that I get to do it soon. Bonjour, Bjorn, I think. It says, good night, just made it. One question, can I use topsoil from a garden with aquarium plants only, no livestock? You can, if your budget calls for it and that's all you have, sure. I do recommend get a good get a good aqua soil. It's going to save you a lot of mess in the long run, and it's just better formulated for aquariums. Tank Tested asks, have you tried growing carpeting plants outside in a big flat tub? I'm considering trying to do it out next summer. I have considered it. It would probably work just fine. My thing next year, early spring, I'm going to get big old tubs and I'm going to throw floating plants in it, because I have probably a waiting list of like 200 people looking for frogbit and dwarf water lettuce. I can't keep up with supply, especially because we recently had aphids move in on our, like, the tanks that we had them in started like getting attacked by aphids. And the aphids are relatively harmless. Like, the plant grows super fast, so it's not going to bother it too much. But I don't want to ship plants that have that on it, so we've been holding it back until I know it's safe, and it hasn't been safe yet, so. Do you ship to Pakistan? Unfortunately, we don't. I wish we could, but we can't. We actually just shipped rock to Canada, which was rather interesting. Made it there, so it was pretty cool. Are those flugel tanks you have? No, these are Ultimate Nature Systems. We have the ability to drop ship them directly to your doorstep, any size you want. So if you're interested in rimless, beautiful tanks like these, message me. They're not directly on the website because, yeah, we don't do it that way as of right now. Happy Halloween to you too, Nicole. I replaced gravel with aqua growth soil in my 55-gallon. Would root tabs help the sword plants as well as the soil? Yep. We went over that a little earlier, but yeah, basically, you know, after you add soil to your aquarium, you're still going to need to add root tabs and fertilizer periodically. It's not just a one-time fix. Like, to really keep the plants growing, you'll need to do that. And it looks like the stream is bugging out. I'm not sure what's happening. But, we're about at our time marker. So, guys, I want to thank you so much for checking out the live stream. Like I said, 15% off the rest of the night, so another 3 hours. Save 15% on the website using the code SPOOKY. Sunday, I don't know what our video is going to be, but I want to thank you guys for checking this out. What's a good CO2 diffuser? I actually like the bazooka ones. The bazooka ones have by far been the best ones for me. I've been told they clog too easily. I haven't had that issue yet, but we'll see in the future. But yeah. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed it, hit that like button, share with your friends. I think we went over a lot of good information here today, and I think a lot of people get a lot out of it. So I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Let me figure out how to end this.